Hi, I'm Darren Flower, and this is the first ever edition of Rock It Up, and we're going to be talking about songwriting. And we have industry veteran Kathy Hahn, and we have from AM to FM Promotions, Andrea Morris. And you are going to learn a lot, so stay tuned. So we're here to talk all about songwriting, but before I get into that, I just want to briefly explain to people who don't know me about what it is I do. So I am an artist, I'm a performer, I'm a teacher, I'm a radio show host, and apparently I'm also a TV show host. But enough about me. I want to talk to my lovely guests over here too. So first of all, thank you very much for doing this. It's very nice of you.
We're glad to be here.
Happy to be here.
Okay, so I'm going to stop stalling. We're going to start talking all about songwriting. Let's get into this. Okay? So what is the key components of a great song? No, what is the key components of a hit song? Or do you want to answer both?
I think they're related. The arrangement is critical. And you can have one song, you can arrange it 10 different ways, it's going to sound different every time. So really the key to having a hit song with that song is how it's arranged musically. And of course it's got to have like proper structure, short intro, bridge, you know, the structure, the infrastructure has to be there. And but it's a craft, and it's a learned craft, and it's not just something that you wake up one day and decide, well, I'm going to be a songwriter. You need to learn music, which is a language, and educate yourself, inform yourself, study the structure of great songs. Take something like the Beatles, who've never written a bad song. Listen to the radio a lot. Figure out what works, what doesn't work. It could be a bridge, it could be a vocal harmony, it could be something very simple that could alter what you might be working on, that could make the difference between whether you have a hit or not.
It's really important, especially to think about keeping an audience with your music. If you want a radio hit, that you have to have something that someone's going to be able to relate to on many levels, as well as to be able to sing along to. There's a lot of songs back in the day, I'm sure you can relate to, like when Dylan was big in the 60s and there was a big protest movement, and many of Dylan's songs would never be played on the radio today because they were so wordy and they were so rambling, but they were musical poetry. Today's music is more short, to the point, and it's all about catching somebody's attention and getting something that somebody can sing along to.
Yeah.
So what do you think the most important part of the song is?
The hook.
The hook?
The hook.
Definitely.
But it has to, for me, from my own personal point of view, it has to touch people, and it has to reach people, and there has to be a universal element to it that's going to reach a wider demographic than something from a personal standpoint. So it's almost like the psychology behind why you're doing what you're doing, the intention. And I've had the fortune throughout my career to work with some of the best songwriters I know, and watching how they function. This is who they are as people. They're just putting it into a song. They actually live by higher values, or they live differently. They live from a mystical or it's a different way of approaching. It's an artistic approach to life. They live from that standpoint, and they bring that to the music, and it's touching hearts.
Does either of you have ever actually tried to write a song or played an instrument?
I used to write songs with my dad. He taught me how to do that when I was quite young. So
how did you go about doing this?
I would write the lyrics, he would write the music, and we would just like play off of each other. My dad was a musician and wrote some of Canada's first commercials and so on. And he taught me how to write copy, creative copy. So he was a great mentor for me for songwriting. And what that has given me is the ability to be able to gauge whether a song is going to work or not.
Right.
And then I also did a couple of years at radio. Andrea's got extensive experience working in radio. You never lose the ability to be able to pick a hit once you're working in radio and you've broken records. And then we both work promotion on the other side, taking records to radio and breaking them and bringing them to mass consciousness. You know that if it's a great song, and it has all of the elements, and the artist is there behind it as an original artist, and they have the right attitude, then you've got the elements to make it happen.
Years ago, working with my first producer, doing my first CD at the time, I remember him beating into my head that melody is king. And I was led to believe, and I actually firmly believe this, that the melody is the most important thing of a song. You know, and the lyrics, of course. The lyrics and melody, in my opinion, are the most important part of the song. Agreed or disagreed?
Melody is critical, and but so is the bottom end, which is like the bass and drums and how that's mixed, and whether you know how to mic a drum kit or not, and so on. These are not things that you can do on your desktop off of Pro Tools. What Andrea had said is true. Unfortunately, anybody can now produce a record off their desktop. Doesn't necessarily mean they're making great music, and it's bred a lot of mediocrity and kind of muddied the waters for artists who are trying to make a name for themselves. So, but the great ones will rise to the top. I'm convinced of that, because you can't ignore something. You know it when you hear something and it's brilliant. You know.
And you want a great middle eight as well.
Yeah.
You know, so many of the Beatles songs, their middle eights are fantastic, and those are the things you remember about them.
Yeah.
You know, and again, if you don't know anything about the music industry, you wouldn't even know what a middle eight was.
Well, why don't you explain to people who don't know what a middle eight is?
Just roll a couple of DVDs out of
Okay. No, I don't want to explain that.
Edit out the line.
You're more technical than I am. Go ahead.
Well, no, you go.
Well, I'm really bad about explaining that because I'm not a songwriter. I have absolutely no musical talent whatsoever, although I have written songs. They've been written out of anger. And they are very good little tidbits of anger. Because I totally believe that emotion, when you're really feeling something, it does inspire a great song.
Yes.
And some of the best works of art have been created out of pain or out of happiness or a lot of times out of tragedy. I mean, if you look at even, say, like 9/11, there have been so many great works of art that have come out of that, like Bruce Springsteen's album The Rising. Fantastic response to that whole event. Pain and tragedy do bring great songs out of people.
Music is a way of us to be able to rise above the human condition. So, I mean, blues songs, if you're sad, if you listen to blues, that's a catharsis. It's going to take you outside of yourself. Music is the one thing that surpasses the intellect, and it's universal. It touches everybody all over the world.
Sometimes I actually, in certain situations, I actually don't understand the lyrics. But me being a musician, the actual music is speaking to me, and I connect with that too. But that's probably because I am a musician.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not, I guess, you know, the general public, and looking to connect with the lyrics.
But it's also, I think what Kathy says is very valid about the emotion. I mean, I remember watching the movie Buena Vista Social Club, and although my knowledge is, I have a very limited Spanish knowledge, and I can speak Spanish a little bit, but I love and adore that album and that movie because there is so much passion and so much heart and soul into everything that they're doing, and when you see them playing, you just see the joy, and that music, they live and breathe and die music, and that becomes a part of what they're doing. So I think any great song actually has all of that as a part of it, where it's like you're pouring your soul into it, which isn't to say that every song has to be an emotional, dragging, you know, like, oh my god, I just put my heart and soul right there on the piece of paper and now I've recorded it and it's fantastic. Because there are certainly throwaway pop songs, what we call throwaway pop songs, that like Love Me Do by the Beatles, you know, Please Please Me, they get stuck in your head. Like even like, you know, Katy Perry, I Kissed a Girl, which I wouldn't say is a great song, but it is a very catchy song that gets caught in your head. And it's a hit song. Songs. It is a feel-good song. I mean, not every song has to be an emotional, gut-wrenching, political protest or whatever. They can just be fun, just stupid things that you just sitting around and sing just for fun.
Well, it's funny that you just referenced Katy Perry and that song I Kissed a Girl. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of people who can relate to that experience, and they don't necessarily have to be guys. So maybe that's a way for people to connect with, because they're like, oh, I actually kissed a girl.
And I liked it.
And they liked it, yeah. So, I mean, again, I think that's an example of people connecting with the lyrics. Right,
and the emotion behind it. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing too. And going back to emotion, I think like, you know, when you're talking about songs, it has to have that, you know, X factor, you know. So there's a lot of really qualified people out there, you know, qualified musicians, but they actually don't know how to write, in my opinion.
And to express it. And to bring it all together.
But that's what a great producer does as well, is to help you formulate your song when you're in the studio and say, take that out, that doesn't work, let's put this together. You know, like case in point, Daniel Lanois, working with U2, and any artist he's worked with, he's a brilliant songwriter on his own.
Right.
And he can help, a great producer that is also has that talent, can take your song and shape it into what it should be.
Right on. So I got an interesting question to ask you. Do you think musicianship actually contributes to songwriting?
Absolutely.
Yes.
I've heard too many artists, and I'm sure Andrea has too, where the music actually sounds like demos because it was done with people, and you can tell they have a limited musical vocabulary. So, I mean, if you really want to be serious about being a songwriter, say it again, go back to school, learn as much as you can about the language itself, because it's the language that's going to be able to increase the commercial potential.
How do you feel about this, Andrea?
I agree wholeheartedly with what Kathy's saying, yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Because, I don't know, I'm not here to playfully debate, and I'm certainly not here to argue with you, but I think that sometimes...
I will crush you.
Really, you will? I know that. Thanks for reminding me.
Well, no.
But hear me out, okay? I'm going with this, okay? Sometimes when you know too much, then it kind of actually is a bad thing because you can tend to overthink.
I understand that, but at the same time, if you have that ability, okay, I did 2 records with a guy named Raphael Rudd. He was the music director for The Who. He's the one who orchestrated Quadrophenia. He conducted the London Symphony Orchestra. He used to do solo shows just like him, simple piano and harp and so on. So he was able to take all of that musical knowledge and bring it to bear with a rock band like The Who. They've never yet done anything since he passed away a couple of years ago. Since he passed away, they still haven't been able to find anyone else at his stride to come in and so on. So, I mean, just because you're educated doesn't mean you're going to use all of that information. It just gives you a wider berth of what your options are when you're trying to find that bridge or a psychological sentiment or something that you're trying to get across, and you know that like maybe a major chord or a minor chord might make a difference, or you might know exactly what that chord is. If you didn't know the chord structures, you wouldn't even know what you were looking for.
Well, I think that you're right to a certain extent, and again, this is just my opinion. I think you should have a, pretty good understanding of maybe a little bit of theory, maybe not a lot. I mean, that's better if you do, but you should know a little bit of what you're doing, and then also maybe just trial and error. I mean, I don't know how many times I just like sat at a guitar as a young kid and just, hammered out chords and just, saw and felt what worked and what didn't.
Well, you remember punk when that first started?
Yeah.
Like, nobody really knew what they were doing then, and they were just throwing things together, like the Sex Pistols.
And punk is not, regarded as, a kind of music that has stellar musicianship. But the emotion is there. It's dripping with emotion.
Yeah.
So,
Passion.
And I think the thing with, punk rockers, I don't think any of them thought they were going to be the next Eric Clapton, but they just wanted to, and they didn't want to be, because they thought that music was probably lame. But, they were just sloppy and just, fast as hell and just giver, and it was all about the attitude.
Well, it was, and it was all about it was almost like a protest thing as well. Like, we hate what we've been hearing. It was almost like anti-disco.
Right.
We just want to do something
Anti-establishment.
Anti-establishment. And it all feeds off of what's going on with the times.
It's a revolution.
Like grunge was as well.
Yeah.
Excellent. When we come back, we're going to be talking a little bit more about this in depth. So stay tuned.
Rock It Up would not be possible without the help from our sponsors, like CFRE Radio. For more information, please visit cfreradio.com. Sherwood Mortgage Group. Longtime friends, serving longtime customers. Call Chris D'Souza at 416-884-2984. Loretta and Sherilyn Flower at Remax Realty Enterprises. For more information, please visit flowerteamrealestate.com or call 905-822-2200. Nude Buddha Tattoo Studio, located at 42 Bronte Street South, Milton, Ontario. call 905-203-0737 or visit nudebuddhatattoo.com. Mississauga Arts Council. Connect, create, engage, support. Find them at mississaugaartscouncil.com or on Facebook and Twitter under Miss Arts Council.
Welcome back to Rock It Up. I'm your host, Darren Flower, and we're talking all about songwriting. We have some great guests. We have industry veteran Kathy Hahn and Andrew Morris from AM to FM Promotion. And I just want to get back at it because I'm having so much fun. Okay, so let's start talking about what some of your favorite songs are and why.
Do you want to go first, or do you want me to?
You go first.
Well, I would have to say my all-time favorite song is from Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run album, and it is the first track on the record called Thunder Road. It's my favorite song because it has a really personal meaning to me, because the very last line in the song is, "It's a town full of losers, I'm pulling out of here to win." And when I was in radio in North Carolina, I wanted to quit because I hated it so much. And I had that album on, and that line came on, and it just reinforced that, yeah, I'm not going to quit, that I'm just going to keep going. And whenever I get really angry and whenever I get frustrated with my job and my life, I listen to that song, and when he says it's a town full of losers, I'm pulling out of here to win, it's like, it all of a sudden, the way he sings it, everything about that song just gives me that whole get up and go, like, okay, Bruce, I'm going to do it. And to this day, will always be my favorite song. And it's not one of those hit songs on the radio, it's just, that is my favorite song because of the meaning of the power of it and the emotion that he puts into it, and I'm a Springsteen fan, and that is a song that's a very personal, powerful song to me in my life.
Excellent.
And nourishing.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kathy?
I don't really have a favorite song as such. I love classical, I love pop, I love rock, I love so many different genres, but I had the privilege when I was working with Bob Marley of taking his first records to radio from North America, and we broke them out of Toronto. That was like a 10-year process. That didn't happen overnight. That to me was quite an accomplishment because he's become like one of the most important artists in the world, in history, anywhere in the world that you go. The most rewarding thing that I experienced with that was he had a song called War, which was very important, still timeless, and with a lot of meaning behind it and a lot of power behind it. I actually got radio to play that record. That was an accomplishment, but I was only able to do that because he did that song live. And when he would do that live, people were mesmerized. Like, there was no way any music director or program director who was in the audience who saw him do that live did not go back, and it didn't matter what format they programmed. That record was on the air the next day. So it was the live show that pushed that through. If it was just the record itself, it couldn't have happened. Couldn't have happened.
Right. If somebody was to ask me, what my favorite song is, I'd probably be stumped because there's just so many different thoughts that go through my head. But I think two of my favorites, now actually one of them actually doesn't have lyrics at all. It's Edgar Winter's Frankenstein.
Yeah.
And yeah, so there's no chance of connecting with the lyrics because there is no lyrics. But
you can make your own up.
Well, and I probably could. I probably have once upon a time. But I connect because as a musician and the actual notes and the note selections that he uses and the creative outside the box thinking, that's just right up my alley because I really admire Edgar Winter and I really love that song because it's just, it's so outside the box.
Well, it's funny because we've spent a lot of time talking about lyrics and talking about that, but there are those musical riffs and songs that get stuck in your head as well.
And
I
always
always
think
think Dave Grohl is great with those.
Oh yeah.
Like the song "All My Life" with the grungy guitar that's like and you just can't get that out of your head.
And it gives you off that emotion.
Yeah, it's
you
almost
just
like you feel
it.
your heart beating. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's a lot to be said for that as well, for the musical hook in the song too.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if this is one of my favorite songs, but I really connect to this but I really like the song Love Hurts. Now, it's not a Nazareth song,
yeah.
but actually there's a really good version of Graham Parsons doing it with Emmylou Harris. It's fantastic.
It's a great
And for
song.
me,
It's a great
I mean,
song.
I love the note selections, I love like the vocals or the harmonies, but I think what really connects me to that song is the lyrics. And there's that word again. It's the lyrics, the lyrics and the melody, because that's something that most people, when they're in the shower, not to think about people in the shower, but they're okay, maybe some people in the shower, but not all. But people in the shower are usually singing
Shower songs.
Shower songs.
Shower the people.
Yeah, foster the people.
Yeah.
No, they're singing lyrics and melody together, right? So I mean, that to me is the most important part of a song. And going back to Love Hurts, I connect with it because I guess I have them lovesick blues. So it's just something that's just real to me. So I really
And
enjoy
the
it.
songs are also, when they're constructed in such a way where the hooks are repetitive, then it makes it much easier to sing along. So it's the structure, simplifying that structure, and that's an art. There's an art to that. I know in Quebec there's a lot of records that work well in Quebec that may not work necessarily in other parts outside, and that's because a lot of the francophones, they learn how to speak English by singing English songs. So if it's simple, this is true, then it's going to be easier for them to. And there's artists that break in Quebec that don't break anywhere else. They sell through like in Quebec and nowhere else. There's a key to being able to do that, and music can take you beyond languages. It can take you. It's what we were talking about before with Cashin. You will go out of your way. It's a discovery thing to find out what those lyrics mean, and to find out what the translation is, and so you can learn other languages through the music of those cultures.
Excellent. Okay, one last question I wanted to ask is, what are the different ways that a songwriter can make money?
Well, obviously you're publishing.
Yep. Music publishing.
Some people don't know what that is. Can you kind of elaborate on that?
Well, you want to start?
It's if you write a song, you need to register the song. You do it with a copyright society, something like SOCAN here in Canada, for example, and they will, as the music gets played outside and around, they will collect the money and on your behalf, or neighboring rights that will collect money for artists that don't write their own songs but perform on performances of your songs as well. There's various ways. So through airplay, through public performances, other artists covering your songs, synchronization, which is music that's synchronized to film or screen or commercials. So commercials, film, theme songs for films, and so on. And those are industries in themselves. That's where you need publishers and people that know how to speak the language that these guys speak, and because they have various ways of working and very structured. So it's not like if you're a songwriter and you have a great song, you think, okay, fine, I'm just going to go get that in a film. There's kind of structures in place that you have to learn about in order to be able to access and get in those doors to meet the people that make the decisions.
And never give your publishing away.
Yeah.
There's so many artists that I've talked to that have said, oh, so-and-so wants to manage me and he wants, 50% of my publishing. Never give your publishing away, because that's where you make your money.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Don't ever let anyone talk you out of that, ever.
Well, it seems like 30 years ago, when you had a commercial, when you had a song in a commercial, it was selling out. But now when you find out that your musician friends actually have a song in a commercial, you almost want to high-five them.
They're making money.
Because they're making money.
Yeah,
Because,
it's another alternative. It's a new stream of revenue, because piracy has cut into record sales so drastically. We have to exploit as many opportunities as we can to get an artist's profile and to develop opportunities for their music to be known. Live is really important, incredibly important, but film, theme songs, synchronization, video games, huge in Asia. Music for video games is huge.
Some of my favorite music as a kid, I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't listen to music, and actually some of my favorite music was actually video game music.
Miss Pac-Man?
Yeah.
No, mostly Zelda. Zelda music was like neoclassical. It was like some of the most brilliant thing I ever heard in my life.
Yeah, and we've grown a lot since those early days of video games, and now it's very sophisticated, and it's a huge industry.
Excellent. So what do you have to say for the young audience that is watching this right now? What kind of advice would you give them?
Music can change consciousness. If you think that it's something that you might want to pursue, go to school. Learn everything you can. Read as many books by as many people who've been successful in the industry. Learn as much as you can, because in this business, it's not what you know, it's what you don't know that's going to stop you. And there's a lot of underwritten rules and protocols and various things, the way the industry works, that you're only going to find out by bucking up against it and finding out that, like, well, that didn't work, I wonder why. It was like, you know, and just, so.
Yeah, educate yourself.
Educate yourself.
Excellent.
And I mean, Mississauga's got Metalworks. They've got phenomenal backup and support with their music programs there and their production programs there. Learn as much as you can about as many different aspects, everything from writing and orchestrating and arranging and programming and how to make, you know, a drum kit to like how to build your own studio, but learn from professionals. Don't think just because you've read a manual you have any idea what you're doing. It's just like, convince me.
And read books about like your favorite artist, or you know, go back, read autobiographies of, you know, older people in the industry, because you will find out so much about how people have made mistakes and learn from their mistakes.
Agreed.
So history does not repeat itself.
Absolutely.
You know, I would say read books about from some of the old cats like Chuck Berry, you know, Little Richard, the Beatles. Those books are amazing because they tell you all the mistakes that they made, all the bad contracts that they signed, all the things they did that you can learn from it as yourself as an artist.
And I have to add, because it's the music business and it's all about selling, it's a sales opportunity. So it's all about selling records and selling CDs. At the end of the day, if you're a solo artist and you know you think you have a lot of potential, find people that you trust that you can develop a team with, because you cannot write, produce, do all of this stuff all by yourself. You're going to need backup. You can't take a record to radio. You won't get in the front door, and because they don't know you. So these are like, I mean, Andrea does this for a living. She can tell you. You're going to lose control over the creative part. You're going to have to do a lot of stuff that you may not agree with, but if you're working with people that know what they're doing, you have to trust them.
You know what? And I would say there's some great shows on television as well on other networks that, you know, the show, I hate to give a plug for it, but the show Nashville, if you have ever thought about being a songwriter or performer, is a really great show to watch to learn, because they talk about songwriting, they talk about performance, they talk about record deals. Anything that you as an artist think going into a record label that you signed a deal and that you get your own career,
It's finished. It's finished.
Think twice.
And this is the kiss of death for a lot of artists, because the minute they realize they don't have any creative control, it's like
you're a product,
they try to
and
sabotage.
you're marketing a
They try to
product.
sabotage themselves. And so yeah, I mean, if an artist is still there going 3 or 4 albums deep, then they've kind of had to go through those first cycles of disillusionment and finding out that like the industry isn't what they, you know, it's not just them deciding they're, you know, going to wake up one day and they're a rock star. It doesn't work like that.
Oh, all right. It appears that we've just ran out of time on this show, but do you guys have a good time doing this?
It's great.
Yes,
Okay.
Very informative.
I think a lot of people learned a lot just by hearing you speak. So, Andrea, if people wanted to find out more about you, how would they go about doing that?
They can go to my website, which is am2fm.com, and that's amtofm.com.
Excellent.
I'd love to hear from you.
Excellent. All right, well, that's about all the time we have for today, but tune in next week so you could rock it up.
Rock It Up would not be possible without the help from our sponsors, like CFRE Radio. For more information, please visit cfreradio.com. Sherwood Mortgage Group. Longtime friends serving longtime customers. Call Chris D'Souza at 416-884-2984. Loretta and Sherilyn Flower at Remax Realty Enterprises. For more information, please visit flowerteamrealestate.com or call 905-822-2200. Nude Buddha Tattoo Studio, located at 42 Bronte Street South, Milton, Ontario. Call 905-203-0737 or visit nudebuddhatattoo.com. Mississauga Arts Council. Connect, create, engage, support. find them at MississaugaArtsCouncil.com or on Facebook and Twitter under Miss Arts Council.